following podcast is for informational purposes only. The contents of this podcast do not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Take responsibility for your own decisions, consult with the proper professionals, and do your own research.
I was curious about the graph, but I wasn't too much in love with the idea until I tried it out. And I remember I tried it out and it was like, okay, this is really, really cool.
Galactic astronauts floating in the space of time, lost between past and future.
Welcome to the GRTIQ podcast. Today I'm speaking with Facu Spagnaulo, co-founder at Mimic, an innovative DeFi solution that makes interacting with DeFi simpler and safer through automations, customizations, and smart vaults. As you're about to hear, Facu is incredibly humble and soft-spoken, but he's worked on some of the biggest projects in DeFi, and his contributions have made a long-lasting impact in the space. During our conversation, Facu talks about his reluctant entry and calculated risk of moving into crypto, his time at OpenZeppelin, Aragon, and Balancer, and the lightbulb moment that started his entrepreneurial journey to launch Mimic. We then talk about when Facu first became aware of the graph, where he shares not only his insights on the importance of the graph, but how Mimic and other projects rely upon it. As always, we started the discussion talking about Facu's educational background.
Well, really nice to meet you and being here. I studied computer engineering at the university here in Argentina. I was mostly formed as a security/networks computer engineer. I started working as a full stack software developer. And then I had a little bit of background on project management / Scrum Master, that kind of educational background.
Facu, I've had the opportunity to interview people all across the world that have studied computer engineering, computer science, things like you studied. My question is, at any point during their education, did they hear about blockchain or distributed systems? Was it something they studied? And I'm curious if in Argentina, where you're from, if that was ever a topic of discussion.
Not during my career at the university, right? I guess I never heard the word blockchain at the university. Definitely after I graduated, like 1 or 2 years after I graduated, I started hearing about this, during the university. I did have some background at the university related to distributed systems. So it was kind of familiar, that topic to me, but not blockchain at all.
That's a pretty common answer. And again, I asked that question just to get a sense of what's being taught in universities all across the world when people like yourself learn and study things like computer science. Well, as you mentioned, you're joining me from Argentina. Seems like Argentina is one of a handful of countries that are always mentioned as being at the forefront of Web3 and super crypto friendly. So what is it about Argentina that makes it so crypto friendly?
Well, definitely it is. I would say it's mostly related to our historic financial and economic issues at the country level. It's really hard to us to become an independent citizen in terms of financial stuff. You really had to, have a deep knowledge about how to do that. And blockchain, I remember when I first heard about Bitcoin, it basically started empowering people that didn't have that deep knowledge about economics or financial stuff to become more independent, right? Even for me, I was a software engineer back then, and these kind of tools started giving me more possibilities to perform different savings or international payments or receive a payment from foreign in exchange for some work that I was doing. Definitely those kind of topics were, I wouldn't say impossible, but it was really hard to manage before blockchain or before Bitcoin, I would say.
Do you think Argentina is a great example of the utility of crypto and what it can do in the world for people?
Definitely. For sure, I would say the financial stuff like savings, payments, sending transfers, peer-to-peer, all that kind of stuff it's really wonderful. I mean, definitely there was no other way to do that before Bitcoin or Ethereum. It was really hard. I mean, or actually maybe there was no way, or you have to have like a company set up like fully online kind of on a bank, which was really hard for normal people. So definitely it's a great example. There are more examples, not just about financial stuff. Like, I don't know how to say about this, like different governance topics, trying to get people to make a decision about some topic in a decentralized way. So all that kind of stuff, it's also happening in Argentina. There was a lot of educational stuff. Maybe it wasn't built on top of the blockchain, but it means like at some point, like people in Argentina, they started like sharing knowledge and becoming like enthusiasts about all these things, and they started like educating people about how to do these things. So I think that they started like a huge community that was really nice due to blockchain or crypto, right?
Facu, as I'm sure you've followed a little bit, in the United States, when it comes to the adoption of crypto, regulation is a huge barrier, a huge hurdle right now. And the future's uncertain with regards to what regulators will eventually do. Is it similar to that in Argentina? Are you all waiting on any piece of regulation, or has the government already stepped in and plotted their path forward?
No, definitely. I mean, there's no regulation. It doesn't mean it's not regulated. I mean, it's just a matter that like probably politicians haven't decided yet what to do about crypto. So yes, I'm always expecting something to occur. But I must say, like, Argentina's government is always a few steps back. I mean, if you compare it to the US or the European Union. So probably it's not going to happen in the short term. But usually what usually happens here is we try to mirror what other countries do about this. So I'm sure it's going to happen the same way with crypto.
So do you remember when you first became aware of crypto and what your initial impressions were?
Yes, I remember. I used to play in a band with Manu Arauz. Manu Arauz was the founder of OpenZeppelin. It was nothing related to crypto and nothing related to software engineering. We just used to play in the band together. And I remember he was traveling to China due to, I think it was DEFCON 2, I think it was. And he started telling me about Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that. It was around like 2015 or 2016, something like that. And I remember my girlfriend started doing a work for him, and he paid her in Bitcoin. So that's how I basically started hearing about this, and I thought that like this is really cool. Like I can receive a payment from foreign, which I was telling you before. That was really hard. You need to have a bank account set up and a lot of paperwork. I mean, it was extremely impossible, at least for me. So that's when I started hearing about this, and I remember I started reading about what was all this about. Manu started teaching me a lot of things. He was really generous. Ended up joining him to working on Zeppelin.
So I want to talk about your time at Zeppelin and some of the things you worked on there. But going back a little bit in time, after you graduated from university, you became a software developer and engineer. What were some of the first jobs that you had as you graduated?
Right after I graduated, I joined one of my best teachers at the university. I started working at his company. It is called 10 Pines. It was a software factory, but it has something really cool that I liked a lot, which is somehow related to how blockchain or decentralized works. It was like a horizontal company, right? Like everyone had a vote there. All the numbers were public. People were the ones empowered to run the company. There were no bosses. There were a lot of different aspects that make 10 Pines really, really cool to me. So it wasn't like a normal software factory. I joined 10 Pines when I was graduating at my last year of the university as a software engineer. Then I learned a lot of stuff about project management and Scrum. So they formed me very well. I think that was one of my great steps in the industry. It was very nice. But that was my first job after I graduated. Right after that was when I joined OpenZeppelin. So I'm not sure if you want to jump into that or.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to know what it was about the opportunity at OpenZeppelin that made you sort of shift careers and industries, right? I mean, you were working in Web 2 and now you find yourself in Web 3. Why did you make that move?
It was really hard. It was actually a really hard one. I remember like spending nights thinking about this, talking to my parents. Like I was getting married when I did this, and I remember like it was one of those tough decisions. Like, is this the right moment to kind of shift to something that it's kind of unknown to me? I had a great position at 10 Pines. I was one of the probably senior positions there, so it was really a really tough decision. But like towards this direction of decentralization and empowering people, which was something I really liked about 10 Pines, as I was saying. I started learning about Ethereum, and I thought maybe I could be one of those, not founders, but the OGs is probably the words that it's being used these days. But I remember maybe I'm going to be one of those guys that can help improving and building this from zero, right? I mean, there wasn't too much built about this back then. I remember when I was doing my work test at OpenZeppelin, Manu told me, hey, can you build this? It was some sort of marketplace for ERC20 tokens. And I remember I told him like, yeah, I can do it. I had no idea what was it about. I remember I arrived at home. I tried to Google it. I was trying to remember in my head what he told me because I honestly didn't know what an ERC20 was. I remember I Googled it and I didn't find anything about this. And it was like, oh shit, like I cannot even know what he's talking about. So to give you some sort of idea, what was the development status back then. But somehow I ended up saying, okay, this might be a great opportunity, trying to be an early member of something, like trying to be one of those guys that really know this stuff from deep. But at the same time, working towards decentralization and empowering people, which was something that I really liked even before I knew about Ethereum, right?
It's an incredible story. I love it. And I want to ask you this follow-up question about your experience. So you go home, you Google it, you can't find anything, and you realize you've kind of put yourself in a bad spot here. That's not the situation anymore. People could Google these things and find a lot of information. So do you think it's easier for people to migrate into Web3 now?
Yeah, definitely there's a lot of more stuff. It happens to me every day. Like when I try to learn something new, I Google it and I found a lot of stuff reading about it. There's a lot of really nice people in the community taking the time to write down some knowledge to transfer it. Tutorials like workshops, YouTube videos, like there's tons. Well, this kind of podcast, there's a ton of stuff to learn about crypto. I cannot consider it done because more stuff is going to come. There are a lot of researchers doing great jobs on different topics, and you need to write ideas about that. But definitely it's been improved. I remember the first thing I did when I ended up joining OpenZeppelin was write down like 5 tutorials or something like that, all the path that I did to join OpenZeppelin. Because it was really annoying to me, like that the word ERC20 wasn't appearing at Google, you know. it was really hard.
The GRTIQ podcast is made possible by a generous grant from the Graph Foundation. The Graph Grants program provides support for protocol infrastructure, tooling, dApps, subgraphs, and community building efforts. Learn more at thegraph.foundation. That's thegraph.foundation.
Hi, this is GRTIQ, and thank you for listening. Listeners who enjoy this content can help support the GRTIQ podcast by leaving a review or a 5-star rating wherever they download podcasts, by sharing episodes on social media, or by simply telling a friend or colleague about something they heard or learned from one of our guests. It's support from listeners like you that make it possible for us to keep shining a light on the people and stories behind Web3 and the Graph.
Roger that.
Your career in Web3 would go on to include some really prominent names and projects within the space. I'm talking about things like Balancer, Aragon, and of course, OpenZeppelin. For the benefit of listeners, do you mind just talking a little bit about those projects? For example, OpenZeppelin, it gets brought up all the time. What is it exactly, and how does it work?
Well, the company has not mutated, but shifted a few times their focus, but I can say a few things that I think they keep doing a really good job at. First of all, the open source library of reusable code. OpenZeppelin is mostly known about the library itself and the security audits. And those were the ones that we been doing for a long time. There were some different like attempts to work on products. OpenZeppelin employees have a huge knowledge about how Ethereum works, right? So you can empower that into different products. I know that there were different tries. I remember one of the first ones that we tried out was Zeppelin OS, which we definitely ended up discarding it. And now I think they released a few versions for this Defender, which is another product related to security stuff. But the ones that really, the two topics that they do a really good job at are the open source library, which has basically like a curated list of reusable code that tons of projects use out there to bootstrap their own projects, and the security audits, which is basically performed like privately by security engineers that work at OpenZeppelin.
And Facu, what about your time at Balancer and Aragon? What can you share about those projects and what you did there?
I joined Aragon first. I think it was around 2019. I joined Aragon to help building like different governance protocols and different products related to governance. That was the main topic at Aragon. Since I joined Aragon right after Zeppelin, I had a great knowledge about security, and that was kind of interesting to Aragon. It is interesting to any project that in Ethereum, right? If you have a good knowledge about security, that's a great plus. I ended up leading a team to build different governance protocols, and I spent like 2 years there. It was a kind of massive, right before, or no, during the pandemic. It was in December 2020. I think it was 15 engineers left Aragon at the same time. I'm not gonna go deep into that, but I remember I was kind of exhausted. Like the pandemic was really heavy in terms of the amount of work that I was doing. I became a father like close to the pandemic, like 3 or 4 months before the pandemic. And it was really tough time to me, having to spend time with my newborn child in an apartment with my girlfriend and working too many hours. It was really tough time. And I remember a friend from OpenZeppelin, Nico, he reached me out because it kind of became famous, this news about data engineering's living in Aragon, and he knew I was working there. He reached me out and asked me like, would you mind joining me Balancer? I'm about to start building Balancer V2. Like, he was the only engineer there. And he told me, I would love you to give me a hand with this. And I remember telling Nico, you're probably asking me my worst time. Like, I'm completely exhausted. If I join Balancer, I will ask you for holidays, like in the next 2 weeks. He mentioned, no problem with that, mate. He really trusts me and knows me. So I ended up joining, and it was really great to work with something like him again. He's a great guy. And I think we understood each other really well. We did a great product. We basically built, I joined Balancer to build Balancer V2, and we released it like after 1 year or 1 year and a half or something like that. There was another engineer there that joined us that was called Danny. I'm going to probably talk about Danny in a few minutes because he's now my co-founder of Mimic. And I remember we released Balancer on April 2021, I think it was. And after a few months, I just wanted to do something new, and that's when I left in a really good way. I loved my experience at Balancer. Fernando, the CEO, is also a great guy. Yeah, great opportunity. Honestly, I learned a lot also there. A lot about DeFi. That was my first DeFi project, so it was great. It was great.
So for listeners that aren't familiar with Balancer, and of course it's a big name, so they've probably seen it everywhere. But what is Balancer? What does it do?
So Balancer is an AMM, but a particular one where you can basically build different type of pools or portfolios. I mean, if you compare it to Uniswap, to give a quick example for people that doesn't know about Balancer, Uniswap pools basically work with two tokens, right? And with 50% in terms of weights, like you have the same amount of value in terms of each of those tokens. But Balancer, what we did was build an AMM where you can put like different tokens with different weights in the same pool. So you can build like different portfolios weighted in different numbers for if you want to like emphasize certain tokens on different pools and so on. that was Balancer V1. And what we did on Balancer V2 was trying to grab that idea about Balancer V1, but also grab the idea about what Curve was doing and try to couple all together in a single AMM. So basically, Balancer became like a platform for different types of AMM that could live in the same place, like pools for stablecoins, like Curve did, pools for Uniswap, or different portfolios of different tokens in a single pool. So it became like a huge AMM with different type of flavors for different pools. So the challenge there was to build the architecture. So then like new developers can come and put their own math that they just need to define how tokens were exchanged, right? But the whole platform was already built and it provided a lot of, again, security, like different features and all that. You just need to put the math on how tokens should be exchanged in your own pool. So the main challenge was building a single platform that was kind of like a general base layer to all those type of pools, right?
Thank you for explaining that. I think that'll be interesting for listeners that have seen the name Balancer and don't fully understand how it works. So you mentioned after working at Balancer, you met your co-founder there and you decided to launch Mimic. That's why we're talking today. Before we talk about what Mimic is and how it works, can you go back in time and tell us when you had the light bulb moment or realization that something like Mimic was needed in the world?
Yes, it was right at Balancer. So I remember when we launched Balancer, I remember Danny, me, and probably others tried to use it. And it was really hard. We knew all the good things that were happening behind Balancer. It was super powerful. It was a really good way to, if you want to invest some money, to earn some rewards. And Balancer is not probably that well known as Uniswap or Curve, but it has a great power and it's a great piece of art. I would say it's amazing. The math behind it, the architecture behind it, like the security part, it's super well optimized. It's a great thing. And I remember like trying to explain it to others, like my parents, friends, and it was really hard. It was really, really hard to do that. And that's when we started thinking about Mimic. I remember talking to Danny and he was going through the same thing. Like, how do you introduce this to people that doesn't have a deep knowledge about Ethereum, right? They don't know what we're talking about. It's really hard for them to join a pool and put some assets there to start earning some rewards. It's like an operational investment, but they couldn't figure it out, right? So we started thinking about, okay, we need to build probably not something that is related to Balancer, but because it was happening to other projects as well. Like maybe if we talked about Uniswap, maybe it was kind of easier to understand, but even though they wouldn't have the knowledge to do it, or maybe they will feel it was risky, or they will feel a little bit dangerous about doing it. So we started thinking, okay, but maybe we need to be like a top layer on top of that to make your experience with the different DeFi protocols a little bit easier for normal people, to allow them to do investments or to claim rewards, to swap rewards and reinvest them. If they had to do all the stuff manually, like with single transactions, maybe they would just drop it and not try to think about it. They were just not even doing it. So that's when we started thinking about this.
So describe to us then how Mimic works and what it does.
So there was a little bit of shifting in our initial hypothesis. When we started thinking about this, as I was saying, we started focusing on the end user, right? Like people like my mother, a friend of mine, my girlfriend, whatever. How we can make sure these people can use this stuff while feeling secure at the same time and kind of trusting what they were doing. So we started thinking something like trying to mimicking. That's when we started thinking about the name of the project, like mimicking what happened in the traditional world, where you basically hire a manager to manage your investments. So we started building some sort of smart contracts to kind of put in touch with people where you can delegate your assets for them to operate them in different DeFi protocols that you kind of whitelisted. Basically, you ended up always having the control of your funds, and you were just delegating them, and the manager was only capable of doing whatever you listed him to do. We actually built it. It was kind of the B1 that we did for Mimic. We started a fundraise on April 2021 around Dev Connect in Amsterdam. I think it was. I remember I already left Balancer back then, and I went with Danny to meet different VCs. And we started pitching this idea, and we started grabbing a lot of feedback. And what we basically understood was that maybe this type of issue was also happening for different projects like DAOs or any other project in the industry. They have a treasury or they need to operate in DeFi, and they still, even though they know how to do it manually, it's still really hard for them if they have to go over thousands of transactions or hundreds of transactions to, invest their money or pay employees and all that kind of stuff. And something that was really cool, that was kind of in the middle of those two ideas, was the idea of automation. So we started thinking about Mimic as an automation platform. What if we try to solve the idea of the entry layer, like making things easier for someone to use DeFi protocols, but at the same time granting some automation for them. And we started seeing a great fit there in different projects. So now we shifted the idea of Mimic as a DeFi automation platform. That's the way we mention it. We kind of shifted the V1 towards that it's now our current V2. And the main idea, to sum it up, it's basically you can automate different operations in DeFi, while at the same time still leveraging the decentralization of Ethereum, making it trustless. So no one is in control of your funds. But at the same time, you can kind of program different steps to make your experience with DeFi much easier, while at the same time automating them. So you don't have to worry about like every time at the end of the month, like going and claim your rewards and then reinvest in them. Or if you need to, reach assets to pay your employees, you kind of automate all the stuff with Mimic. So that's what we're doing now.
So at the core of Mimic is this thing called a smart vault. How does that work, and what is a smart vault?
So a smart vault was the entity that we think probably mostly related to how a traditional vault, like a yarn vault, will work, where you have a lot of different DeFi operations mixed in the same place to perform some stuff like investing money in Curve, then claiming rewards, then swapping them and reinvesting them, and doing that, monthly or every week or whatever. That kind of stuff is kind of encoded in a vault. What we tried to do here was, what if we have something like a vault that could be configured in different ways? Like instead of having different type of vaults to perform different actions, we have like a single vault that could interface with all these different protocols. But you as a user, you can tell, I want to invest money in Curve, but I want to swap the rewards in Balancer and then reinvest them in Curve again. So what a smart vault does is basically offer you a lot of what we call primitives. These primitives are mainly different interactions with DeFi protocols that you can define a recipe of how do you want to use those primitives all together to make something happen. But it's not encoded in the vault itself. It's just the smart vault provides you, again, all those integrations for you to use them as however you want. To give you a quick example about what these primitives are, these primitives could be like swapping, and we interface with all the most known DEXs out there and aggregators, reaching, wrapping assets, unwrapping, joining, adding liquidity or removing liquidity, claiming rewards and all that. But again, those are just like single operations that are encoded in the smart vault. You can put them together however you want to make something happen. And that was the thing that was really cool for different projects. Like, to give you a quick example, we've been working on many solutions around fee distribution, what we call fee distribution, to let you know about like all the DEXs out there. They earn fees in different tokens because basically they retain a small fee out of every swap, which is basically most of the times is charged in the token that you're receiving in exchange, right? The token out. So basically they have earnings in different set of tokens, right? And hundreds of tokens. It happens to Uniswap, it happens to Balancer, to Paraswap, like any decentralized exchange has this issue. The issue is, okay, like now that we charge all those fees, how can we grab them together like in a single place to make use of it? to pay grants or to pay employees or whatever. So imagine like if you're an exchange and you need to go like and swap manually all those assets like at the end of every month. Imagine like what's happening right now to DEX is that they have support in different layers. So if you have to do it in all those layers and then bridge them and probably, I don't know, swap it into a stable coin to make use of it. If they have to do all the stuff manually, it's insane. And this is one of the really cool use cases that we found about Mimic. And we provided already a solution to Paraswap. And we're working on another one for Balancer, which is basically about, okay, you can set up a smart vault and basically allow them to swap your fees in whatever exchange you prefer or whatever exchange they give you the lowest slippage, and then bridge them into a single layer. And basically it will happen everything automatically. Every time at the end of the month, you will have your USDC, let's say, in a single wallet, and it happens all automatically. The smart vault is not in control of funds, but it can do it. I mean, if you can configure which are the different parameters you agree with, like the slippage, the gas price, the transaction cost limit, whatever. There are different parameters that you can configure to make it fully decentralized. It will save you a lot of time. I can ensure that.
What's your long-term vision for Mimic? What do you want it to do and accomplish in the world?
Our long-term vision is to make it fully understandable for developers to build their own smart vaults and customize them as they want. Like right now, even though we build the core architecture to make all this happen, all the different solutions that we've been working with the different projects like Paraswap or DXDAO, and there are many others. We've been working with them, right, to configure these smart vaults, mainly because we know it's a new technology and we don't expect them to just grab our documentation and do it themselves. So we are working closely with them to, again, grab feedback and understand which are the different constraints there, which are the things that are not easy to understand. And we're trying to improve all this stuff. Our main goal is basically to have a fully decentralized platform that any developer can come and say, I want to create a smart vault to do this, this, and that, or to operate these primitives in this way to, I don't know, help my project paying employees at the end of the month. And I don't want to care about this. While at the same time feeling safe and secure and understand that it's completely trustless and decentralized. That's our main goal, which is, again, it's possible now, but we know in the same way I was doing this for Balancer, at some point, there's an entry layer that it's hard to understand sometimes, and we need to polish that a lot. So yeah, that's our main goal.
I want to ask you this question about becoming an entrepreneur. So you moved from Web 2 into Web 3, started at OpenZeppelin, went to Aragon, and then Balancer. And then you decided within Web 3 to make the move to become an entrepreneur. What has that experience been like for you, and what have you learned along the way?
It was a nice one, but a tough one as well. When I decided to last Balancer, I remember I had a second kid. So I had two babies and my house with my wife, and it wasn't easy to decide, I'm going to just start earning a salary and try to build this. We'll see if we can fundraise something, but there's no answer about it until you did. So of course I had some savings. I wasn't I wasn't going to do it like completely. I had some savings to at least live for a while, but it was a tough one. I remember I had like many nights like thinking, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I keep contributing to other projects? Like I had a great background in the industry, again, about security, architecture, project management. It's not something that you really find. It's not easy to find that kind of background in the industry. I mean, with 5 or 6 years of experience in Ethereum. So it was a tough decision. Like, should I try it out, or should I keep doing what I'm doing? Because I'm having a great time, like contributing to any project that I want. Basically, there were no barriers for me in a good way. Like every project that I wanted to contribute, the doors were open. So it was kind of why should I stop having a great time with this versus I don't know, trying to do something that I imagine it may help the world out there, but I honestly don't know. But it was I guess when we started pitching to different VCs and we started understanding them, there was kind of a spot there, to to make your ideas work or to contribute to the ecosystem that no one else was, or maybe a few projects were kind of trying it out, but none of them were succeeding yet. It started becoming more happier and convinced about the idea of Mimic.
So if listeners want to learn more about Mimic, learn how it works, get more involved, what's the best way for them to learn more?
Mimic.fi. That's our website. That's for the entry point for all the documentation, GitHub repositories, Twitter, blog posts, all the stuff. You can find it there. And you can find us also in Discord. You will find a link about our Discord server in our website. It's open for everyone, so everyone is welcome to come and ask questions about Mimic. I'm really happy to answer them and tell more about Mimic to anyone.
I have a lot of listeners that have the ambition of becoming an entrepreneur in Web3. They're not sure how to get started, or they're sitting on an idea trying to figure out how to make it work. You've done it successfully. What's your advice to them?
Give it a try. If you don't have any huge responsibilities, if you're not gonna go insane trying to do it, just give it a try. I would say I wasn't a Web2 entrepreneur, but from other people that I heard about, it wasn't that easy before. Not sure if it's because of the how big the community is growing so fast, the amount of VCs that are being around crypto, but it's kind of easy to get in touch with them. If you get a good idea and if you feel super convinced about something that could change the crypto world and empowering more people or help decentralization in a good sense, and definitely sure that you can convince a lot of VCs to support you. Also, you can reach out projects. There are many projects helping people to start their own projects. You should try it out. If you got the time and you can manage your responsibilities at the same time, you should try it out definitely.
Hi, this is Facu Spagnaulo with Mimic Finance. If my conversation with the GRTIQ podcast has been helpful to you, then please consider supporting future episodes by becoming a subscriber. Visit grtiq.com/podcast for more information. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
GRTIQ podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Facu, I just have a few final questions for you, and then I'm going to ask you the GRTIQ 10. I want to ask you about the graph. Do you recall when you first became aware of the graph and what your original thoughts were about what the protocol was doing?
Yeah. The first time I heard about the graph, I was working at Aragon, and I remember Jorge, the CTO of Aragon, asked me to build a graph for a UI. They were kind of in touch with Janib. I had a call with him. He started telling me a little bit about what the graph was doing. They released one of the first versions of the graph at that moment. And he was like, please give me some feedback and ask me any questions if you want to try it out. And I definitely wanted to do it because, before the graph, there weren't too many ways in order to populate information for a UI, right? It was a kind of a manual thing. There were no standards, so people were doing different custom stuff. It was really hard to build something that you may think that will stay in the midterm. I wasn't. I was curious about the graph, but I wasn't too much in love with the idea until I tried it out. And I remember I tried it out, and it was okay, this is really really cool. I remember it was super easy to bootstrap a UI with the graph, and it wasn't only useful for UI. You can have whatever type of information you wanted to graph from your smart contracts in a sort graph that you can create from the outside, maybe for your UI or maybe to produce some stats of your project or do some accountancy or whatever. It was really powerful and was easy to use. I didn't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure it out, and it was in the early days. So I kind of fell in love with the graph. After that, I guess I use it in all the projects I contribute to, in many, many projects. Actually, I contribute to some projects in the graph. Many times I ping different people at the graph asking to help them with anything they could give it to me, because it was a great project. I really loved it. And I wanted to contribute to the graph. Of course, we're using it right now at Mimic. They now support like many layers, and that's really useful to us because we're supporting many layers as well. But we use it at Balancer. I use it to do accountancy of Mimic, to populate UI, different UIs of Mimic. It's super powerful and super helpful. Definitely, they solve a really good problem in the crypto space. Definitely.
So Facu, you know a lot about building in Web3, and you're a developer and you've worked on some incredible projects, and not all my listeners, and certainly not even myself, could do the type of work you do because I'm non-technical. But to help us understand how important something like the graph is for what you do, can you just kind of fill in there? Why is the graph so important for builders like yourself in Web3?
Well, basically, there's a huge gap between, let's say, a smart contract and the end user. You cannot go over the EVM and start reading information just manually to populate the UI, to show something to your users. I'm not even saying about querying stuff, but if you need to do add some kind of logic there, like if you want to do, I don't know, accountancy or probabilities or doing some math to reduce the information. If you go over Balancer, again, as an example, if you want to show like TVL or a value in USD or the slippage or I don't know, different type of values that the end user needs to know when they need to interact with your platform. I mean, you don't have those values in the blockchain. You need to reduce all the information to produce them out. Without the graph, that's impossible. Or you need to figure out your own way of doing it. I heard there are a few projects that build their own reducing logic to produce that type of information, but probably those are like big projects that can probably dedicate a full team to do it. And it's not even a decentralized solution, right? The graph makes it also decentralized. So I would say they're filling that gap between wherever information is stored in the blockchain, the EVM, and whatever information is shown to the user. And there's a huge gap there. I'm sure maybe it's hard to understand it, but if you start working on a smart contract, if you want to show some information about it to your end user, you will understand what I'm saying. There's a huge gap. Maybe it's not easy to see it from the outside, but when you start doing it, they really solve the problem. They give you a lot of tools to make that happen really easy. Otherwise, again, as I was saying before, the graph, doing that manually, I mean, you can figure it out, but it was always custom solutions, different solutions out there, no standardization. And it's really hard for a community to grow in that sense, right? If we're all together towards in the same direction and following the same standards, it's easier.
And my last question is, what makes you optimistic about the future of DeFi and crypto?
Well, probably it's something I kind of feel close to what I was saying about Argentina at the beginning of this. The thing that I find really optimistic about DeFi is empowering people to make different type of operations in the financial space. Investments, saving money, having a safe place to store the savings, making transfer to different people across the world, like all the kind of stuff that are the other things that are helping me out there. But basically, because maybe you can say that transferring money is something that is not that difficult out there, but you can always imagine that there are different countries or different places in the world where it is actually a difficult thing to do. And even if you think something extremely simple like transferring money, like if you start talking about investing it, it's something that it's probably nonsense to many people out there. So this thing is definitely helping people to open these doors to the financial world. So I think it's extremely important, not just for the big whales, but also for the small ones that just need to take their first steps in the financial world. So that's something that I feel really optimistic about.
Well, now, Facu, I'm going to ask you the GRT IQ 10. These are 10 questions I ask each guest of the podcast each week, and I do it to help listeners learn something new, try something different, or to achieve more. So are you ready for the GRT IQ 10?
Yep, let's go.
The GRT IQ 10. This is the way.
10 questions for astronauts floating in space.
What book or articles had the most impact on your life?
The book that I always remember about is Legacy, from John Kerr. Not sure if you heard about it. It's not anything related to engineering or entrepreneurs. It's a book that a journalist wrote about the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. It analyzes the different ways they behave as a team, and that's something that I kept trying to keep in mind every time I work with the team and in different projects, and it's been really useful to me. Definitely something that everyone should read about.
Is there a movie or a TV show that you think everybody should be required to watch?
Friends. I mean, there's been like too many different TV shows these days. There are a ton of TV shows that I find interesting. If you would like to learn something, I would prefer documentaries. But if you wanna, I don't know, just I always try to use TV shows when I need to take some time off from my daily basis. So Friends is like a 20 minutes episode that you can see to just let your mind go away and laugh for a few minutes.
If you could only listen to one music album for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. I think I can play it any number of times and I won't regret it.
What's the best advice someone's ever given to you?
To doubt about yourself and welcome other people's point of view. Even if you're completely sure about an idea, try to understand why someone else exposing another idea and why they may be thinking about it. Maybe it's gonna teach you something. Even if you're sure, there's always an opportunity to teach and learn something new.
Facu, what's one thing you've learned in your life that you don't think most other people have learned or know yet?
It's something difficult. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm probably learning about them and learning about other people. I'm not sure I know something that other people don't know, to be honest.
What's the best life hack you've discovered for yourself?
Daily goals. Every morning or the night before, I pick my top 3 priority things to do in the next day. And I try to accomplish that, like whatever it takes. At least one high priority thing and 2 mid or low priority things. That's the best life hack to make my day more productive and be more effective. Definitely that's worked for me in a really good way. And I've been doing it for 8 to 10 years. And I keep doing it every day.
Based on your own life experiences and observations, what's the one habit or characteristic that you think best explains why people find success in life?
Well, something I always try to achieve is like enjoying your daily basis, right? Like if whatever you're doing, probably at work, that it's one of the things that you spend the most time at, you're not really happy with, it's not gonna make you successful. So trying to enjoy every day, even whatever thing you're doing, spending time with your kids or working or traveling, whatever, just trying to get the most out of it and trying to enjoy it, like being happy about it. I'm really proud of all the things that I've been doing in the last years, especially in this space, because I extremely enjoy it. I don't feel like this is a work that I need to do. I just enjoyed contributing to the space and I find it really useful. And I just don't think about holidays anymore or don't think about, okay, this is work time, you know? I just do it in my old days because I enjoy it. So that's extremely important, I think.
And then the final 3 questions are complete the sentence type questions. So the first one is, the thing that most excites me about Web3 is?
Decentralization and empowering people.
And the next one, if you're on Twitter, then you should be following?
Vitalik.
And lastly, complete this sentence. I'm happiest when?
I share time with my loved ones, team members, family, friends.
The GRT IQ 10.
And I show you how deep the
Podcast.
Facu, thank you so much for your time. You've been generous in explaining Mimic and a lot about your background and the way you found yourself into Web3. If listeners want to learn more about you, follow the work that you're doing, what's the best way for them to stay in touch?
Twitter, probably at Facu Spagnaulo. We can probably write it down in the podcast description, but yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
This has been a production of the GRT IQ podcast. For more information, including detailed show notes, visit grtiq.com/podcast. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
Please consider contributing to this project and helping build the community by subscribing and leaving a review.
GRTIQ
Podcast. Roger that.